Welcome to History Doc.
All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're looking at what is honestly one of the most mind-blowing stories of survival, psychological endurance, and just absolute unflinching loyalty in modern history. We're talking about a man who literally stopped time, a guy who was completely isolated from the rest of humanity, fighting a phantom war that had ended decades ago. If you've ever wondered just how far human conditioning and belief can go, well, this is the story that absolutely tests those boundaries. Now, take a look at this stark 29-year gap. For the vast majority of the globe, the Second World War came to a definitive, world-altering halt in 1945, right? But for one specific soldier, the war just kept raging, day after day, year after year, all the way until 1974. So how does nearly 3 decades of global progress just bypass one human being? Well, to find out, we need to head into the jungle. Part 1. 1974. The Endless War. Picture this incredibly vivid contrast. The year is 1974. The world is celebrating peace, building towering new cities, and embracing new technology. People have long forgotten the old battles. Yet deep in the dense, terrifying jungles of Lubang Island in the Philippines, there's a lone man. His military uniform is in absolute tatters, literally torn to shreds by decades of jungle wear. But his rifle and his traditional sword, they are still meticulously polished and gleaming. He's completely isolated, fighting a ghost war against American forces that went home a long, long time ago.
This man is Hiroo Onoda. He was an intelligence officer for the Japanese Imperial Army. And for Onoda, time simply stopped in 1944. He genuinely, truly believed that the enemy was still out there, lurking in the shadows, just waiting in ambush. He was convinced that the second he stepped out of that jungle, he'd be captured or killed. He was practically frozen in amber. But to actually understand how a human mind can endure 29 years of extreme isolation and paranoia, we have to look closely at his early conditioning.
Which brings us to Part 2, the No Surrender Command.
Born in a small village in 1922, Onoda grew up in a Japan that was vastly different from the high-tech hub we know today. It was an environment of incredibly strict discipline where kids were taught that it was better to die than to surrender. By the time 1944 rolled around, World War II was at its absolute peak, and Japan was struggling. So as a desperate move, the High Command selected a few elite soldiers, including Onoda, to attend the Nakano Military School. And here, he wasn't just taught to fight. He was intensely trained in guerrilla warfare, intelligence gathering, and extreme survival. His specific mission? Go behind enemy lines to Lubang Island and systematically disrupt and destroy enemy supply routes. He was literally trained to make the jungle a living hell for his adversaries. Before he left, his commanding officer looked him right in the eye and delivered a chilling mandate that would dictate the rest of Onoda's youth. He was explicitly told, "Never surrender. You are not allowed to commit suicide. Even if it takes 3 or 5 years, we will return." Now, for Onoda, who was raised to view a commander's order as basically a divine mandate, these words sparked a fire that wouldn't burn out for 3 decades. He was locked in. Let's move on to Part 3, Decades of Jungle Survival. So, in August 1945, the devastating reality of the atomic bombs hitting Hiroshima and Nagasaki forced Japan to officially surrender. The war was over. But nobody could effectively deliver that message to Onoda. The Allied forces knew guerrillas were hiding out, so they dropped thousands of leaflets from the sky stating the war was over. The Japanese government even dropped family letters, photographs, and, get this, they actually played his own brother's voice over loudspeakers. But Onoda's reality was entirely different. He had been taught that the enemy was incredibly cunning, so he looked at all this evidence and just dismissed it as a clever trap designed to lure him out. He rejected all proof of peace, holding firmly onto the belief that his commander's return was the only truth. Believing the war was still actively raging, Onoda and the 3 men in his squad lived like actual ghosts. They had absolutely no supplies and no roof over their heads. They lived constantly on the move among the dense, unforgiving trees and the wet ground. To survive, they relied on extreme, primitive tactics. We're talking foraging for raw bananas and coconuts. They'd sneak into local farmers' fields to steal rice. And when the hunger became unbearable, they would hunt local cows, meticulously sun-drying the meat so it would last for months. But you know, this massive psychological burden didn't just affect Onoda. His men slowly lost hope and fell away, one by one. In 1949, Akatsu just couldn't take it anymore and surrendered. 5 years later, in 1954, Shimada was killed during an encounter with local police. And finally, in 1972, his last remaining companion, Kazuka, was also killed. From that exact moment on, Onoda was entirely solitary, a phantom haunting the jungles of Lubang. Now, we do need to look factually at the catastrophic consequences of his delusion here, because this wasn't just some victimless act of wilderness survival. Onoda viewed the local villagers and the island police as active enemy combatants. Operating strictly under his guerrilla training, his night raids and skirmishes resulted in over 30 local people being killed and more than 100 injured over those 3 decades. So the tragedy of his unyielding belief was heavily paid for by the innocent locals of Lubang Island.
This leads us to part 4, the adventurer and the order.
Enter Norio Suzuki. He was a 24-year-old Japanese civilian adventurer who possessed an incredibly bizarre bucket list. Suzuki had 3 main life goals. He wanted to see a wild panda, he wanted to see the legendary Yeti, and he wanted to find Hiroo Onoda. Seriously, what entire armies, search parties, and governments could not accomplish over decades, this young guy set out to do with sheer adventurous optimism. Incredibly, after traveling into the Lubang jungle, Suzuki actually managed to find Onoda in just 4 days. Literally 4 days. Their meeting on February 20th, 1974 was incredibly tense. Onoda initially tried to shoot him, but Suzuki quickly shouted out his name in Japanese, explaining that the emperor and the people of Japan were worried about him. Suzuki desperately tried to explain that Japan was now a peaceful, thriving economic power, but Onoda's absolute, unwavering loyalty held firm. He looked Suzuki in the eye and told him he would not, and could not, surrender his post without an official, direct order from his commanding officer. So to finally end this, the Japanese government had to stage a meticulous piece of military theater. Suzuki returned to Japan with photographs to prove Onoda was actually alive. The government scrambled and eventually tracked down Onoda's exact commanding officer from 1944, Major Tanuguchi. Now, Tanuguchi wasn't a soldier anymore. He was an older man quietly making a living selling books. But they took this old bookseller, dressed him back up in his military uniform, and flew him out to the Philippine jungle to break a 29-year-old psychological spell. When Major Tanuguchi finally stood before Onoda in the jungle, Onoda instantly snapped to strict military attention and delivered a perfect salute. Tanuguchi pulled out a piece of paper and read the official orders. Japan has lost. Your mission is over. Hand over your sword and rifle to the enemy. Hearing those specific words from the specific man who gave him his original orders 29 years prior, the ghost soldier finally broke. He openly wept, realizing the incredible weight of his lost years, and at long last, he laid down his weapons.
And that brings us to our final section, Part 5, Winning War, Losing to Time.
Just look at the staggering personal toll his uncompromising loyalty demanded. Onoda was only 22 years old when he entered that jungle. He was brimming with youth, vigor, and a fierce sense of duty. When he finally handed over his sword, he was a 52-year-old man. He had sacrificed his prime, his friends, and the best years of his life to a phantom war that existed entirely within the confines of his own conditioned mind. When he returned to Japan, he was hailed as a national hero by many, but the reality for him was jarring. The Japan he left behind was just gone. It was replaced by a heavily modernized, westernized, and technologically advanced society. Finding it pretty much impossible to adjust to this alien world, he actually left Japan the very next year to live in Brazil. But as time went on, he sought closure. In 1996, he bravely returned to Lubang Island. He donated $10,000 to the local community and established a scholarship, actively attempting to heal the wounds and make amends for the tragic pain he'd caused the locals over those 29 years. Eventually finding some peace, Hiroo Onoda lived a long life, passing away on January 16, 2014, at the age of 91 in Tokyo. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you to reflect on this profound final question. Hiroo Onoda's resilience, his sheer ability to survive against impossible odds, is totally undeniable. But when you look at the devastating cost, the lives lost, the 3 decades of youth entirely vanished in the mud of a foreign jungle, you really have to ask, he won his personal war of survival, but did he ultimately lose to time? What is the true cost of unwavering belief? Take a moment to think about that, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.
Like this video, share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to History Doc.